All right, we're recording. All right, folks, you're listening to the Amazing Vito show, and I'm talking to an old buddy that I haven't seen in so long, maybe 20 years. It's been that long. The one and only Mr. Arron Berg. How you doing, Aaron?
I'm great. How are you? It was nice to hear from you out of the blue, randomly. I don't think it's been quite 20 years, and I'll tell you why. January the 20th will be my 20-year anniversary from the first time I did stand-up.
Okay.
And that was back at Spirits Bar and Grill in Toronto. That's when I counted. I did a couple shows before that, but that's when I started and didn't look back. So you and I must have seen each other
At the Comedy Awards.
So I must have been 4 or 5 years in at least then.
Yeah, but I remember seeing you at Spirits and stuff, and for some reason, I don't know, I was just shy or something, or I never spoke.
I remember we used to chat, but were you like Toronto guy proper? I always feel like you were in Hamilton for some reason.
No, I was in London.
Okay.
So I would drive down, and I remember at the Rivoli when you were playing, and we were in the back, and you whipped out your dick and showed Deborah DiGiovanni.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, she took forever to look away. Like I quickly just went, oh fuck, but Deborah was just like,
oh yeah, she likes dick, huh?
She was like this. She was just like,
boy, I barely remember that. I think it was because maybe Jason Rouse was on stage and he was moving to England or LA or something. So I felt like it was this passing of the torch that we would whip our dicks out.
Right.
And it was this ceremonial thing because, I was always trying to fit into that next dirty guy model. So it was interesting how that happened. That Rivoli was a good room. That was, it was called the Alt Dot. And that's the first place I did my hot chocolate story, which was my best story ever, and I did it on stage there.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, it was hard for me to come down. It was like 2 hours away, well over 2 hours. So it was kind of, people were like, why don't you ever stick around? Or and I'm just like, dude, what are we gonna do? By the time we get home, it's gonna be 3 a.m. It takes me forever to go to sleep. All I do is think about the set. And by the time I go to sleep, it'd be like 5 a.m. So
right,
forget it. So
hang on one sec. I'm really sorry. Hang on.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Aaron's gonna do a couple of
guys.
Oh, it's probably his cat. His cat got out.
Guys, I'm really sorry. I gotta do this. Okay, I can't have pipes. Where are you, honey?
He's gonna hit some.
Chris? I can't have her down here.
He's not a violent man, but if you ever seen the size of Aaron, you wouldn't want to pick him on. Or he lifts that. That's what he does every morning. He lifts shit.
I love you, honey. I'll see you upstairs, okay?
You gotta join it, Jim.
Oh, come here. Give me a kiss.
But he's not talking to anybody. It's probably Deborah.
Sorry, Vito.
Hey, no problem, man. I totally understand. I mean, it's hard to doing these. It's very, people don't understand.
Sorry, man.
No, it's okay, man. Don't worry.
I got it's really difficult for me to get any time.
Well,
so I apologize. My daughter's upstairs now, but she so that's it. Sorry about that.
It's okay, man. We could barely even hear her, so don't worry about it. Okay. Anyways, I remember at the Comedy Awards seeing you there. I don't know why I said 20. Maybe it was about
15, 16. Which Comedy Awards in London?
Yeah, it was one in London.
I would know. I was 5 or 6 years in, and I just came back from the first Western Canada tour that I did, and I was really loose. I think I started getting good around that. I mean, that's when 6 years is when you kind of start to chip away at
Well,
it.
I noticed that all of a sudden, uh, you just you were very uh, I don't know the right word. I don't want to sound weird or anything, but you just blossomed. It's like you found your niche.
Hmm.
You were just comfortable on stage. It was like you were like talking to a buddy,
Hmm.
telling a story. And I remember there was a bit where, I mean, just what you said earlier. Just there were bits that you were doing, stories that you were telling, that um, all of a sudden the audience were, you were blowing up the room. Uh,
Yeah.
I've heard comics say that. I was watching Kumia the other day, and he was saying how, yeah, I think it was him or somebody else, or Dave Landau said it was a it was a bad audience. It's always a bad audience. The second show, sometimes, you know how it is sometimes.
Yeah.
And they go, yeah, Aaron went up there. It was a bad audience, but he killed it. And I'm
Oh,
like,
really?
yeah,
That's nice.
it's
Well,
just the way. Yeah, I mean, when I watch you guys, there was, you said Gino shaved your ass. Did he really?
yeah,
That's weird.
with like clippers, you know, didn't get too deep in there, but what's weird about that? It's the evolution of shock jock radio. It's shock
Even
jock
that-
video. We
wait,
have to do outrageous
but did
things.
people see it?
See what, my asshole?
Yeah.
No, I mean they saw my butt. They
Oh
saw
God.
clippers up
And
there.
you let him do that?
I show my ass. I
No, I
I have
know,
no
but you're a
shame.
comfortable man. You show your dick to everybody. But I mean, you're
Yeah.
having another guy.
I don't get to show my dick to enough people anymore. I think that's the problem, because when you're married, you can't just run out and show your dick to everybody, and especially after what happened with Louis and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I wish I could show my dick to more people.
Well, yeah. But with Louis, the thing that I don't get with Louis, where he got in trouble, he would tell people, "Do you mind if I whip it out? You could leave if you want to."
It
That's
was a totally gregarious
yeah,
thing where he asked consent to do it, but
yeah.
it's just they went after. Look, when you get good as a stand-up comic, and I don't know what it is, people want to take you down. And there's this notion, and I believe this for years, most of the hatred comes from like other comics, younger comics that aren't good, comics that don't get anything. So they have this anger, and I thought for years it was this, and it was when clubs were open, that they want to push out the top tier people so that they can make spots for themselves. Because every comic, no matter what they say, they don't want to work in shitty bars in front of 6 people. They want to be in packed comedy clubs on weekends. They want to be making a living, making people laugh in comedy clubs. And most people can't do that. It's a hard skill to learn. It takes years to be a killer and be consistent. And there's some people that get buzz on them, and then they get booked and they go, and then the owner's like, oh, this person doesn't have 45 minutes, whatever. It
No,
it
it's true.
happens like that.
It's
What were you
true.
saying? Yeah.
No, it's true.
But there's something about stand up, and you're seeing it now in New York when they did not address stand up. They shut down Broadway. They're like, here's when Broadway's going to open. But there was 18 comedy clubs at one point in New York City, all small businesses that were thriving. And for them to not acknowledge that and basically say, they made stand up illegal. They said, trivia can happen at bars, karaoke can happen at bars. You cannot do stand up. And it's like, why? It's the exact same thing. So there is a fear, and there's something, Louis was the top stand up at the time when it happened. People go after stand ups. I've been getting called an extremist right wing comic, a Nazi. And it's like,
and
the need to attack, I don't understand it.
and I don't know you. We don't hang out, but I know that you're nothing like that. I know you're a kind, sweet guy
Yeah.
that could bench press 600 pounds. So
Squatted 255 today. I felt good about that.
it's just people put this. I hate to say it. They'll say he's what you just said. And I'm like, he's nothing like that.
Hmm.
I mean, you're
Racist, misogynist.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
the stuff that, look, comics have to deal with the elephant in the room. And I live in the United States of America, the major issues are socioeconomic structure, race, racism. Once in a while, you deal with the taboos that you're not supposed to. So as a comic, when someone says you can't do this, you want to do it. So transphobic jokes, Muslim jokes, all the stuff that separates us. And I would say that the litmus test is, you are racist people if a diverse audience of people do not laugh at those jokes. But when I go into any room and there's diverse people of all colors, all sexualities, and they're all dying laughing, that goes, okay, it's funny. But now the cancel culture people want to go, well, it's funny, but it's still hateful. And you're using the funny to spread the hateful message.
yeah,
And it's just like, you're thinking about comedy too much. How did this thing go where we're making people laugh and have a great time for an hour to he's a thought criminal?
yeah.
And it's amazing to see it happen. And part of me likes it. Part of me likes the attention. The other part of it doesn't like it because people will prejudge me when they meet me. But it's like, the guys you're clustering me in with, you're going after Chappelle, you're going after Burr, you're going after Tim Dillon, you're going after me. I'm like, okay, so clearly I'm doing something right, because people come see me now, they pay for tickets, and people are pissed off. It's the perfect storm, right? But it's a fine line too. It's a minefield. David
But
Feldman described it as a minefield,
yeah,
because you're
but
walking in really murky waters, for lack of a better term. Obviously there wouldn't be a minefield in waters, but it's like it could explode, but it could also be you're walking this tightrope. And I mean, that's every set I do. I never prepare. It's all in the moment stuff, and it's just what's happening in the world now.
yeah, and it's pretty disturbing. I mean, it just feels like to me, comedy. You know what it's like? Do you remember, starting off doing stand up? Like for an example, I mean, you made fun of, oh, what's her, and I don't get it. I don't get it. The Hannah Gatsby girl, right?
Right.
I don't consider that stand up. I
Right.
consider that like a monologue. I mean, her talking about, sorry about my voice, but her talking about her rape, which is horrible, but I'm there to have a laugh,
Yeah.
where I remember at the Super Club seeing you, and there was a bunch of black people there, and you went up, and you didn't even do like you did a risque joke, and they were standing up, rolling around,
Yeah.
laughing their brains out, and the only person just staring at you is some white girl.
Yeah.
And it's just I'm like, what do you not understand that when there was a king, the only guy that could make fun of him, the only person, is the gesture.
Yeah.
Okay. And once you kill off the gesture, that means nobody can make fun of society. Nobody can make jokes about the economy. Nobody can make fun of, it's the whole, uh, remember the Bizarre, that show Bizarre? When
Boy,
they,
I missed that show. What
yeah, it
was
was
his name?
Biner,
John Biner.
John Biner.
Biner or Biner?
I don't know, Biner, John Biner.
And the big guy was on it that went on to Curb Your Enthusiasm, right? Super Dave.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He was on.
Boy, that's a good show.
That
I
was
got to
an
watch
awesome
that
show.
show
Do you
again.
remember? Do you remember the biggest?
Benny Hill too. You
Yeah,
remember Benny Hill?
Benny Hill, my favorite show.
Yeah.
My son tells his this is hilarious. My son tells his teacher that hey, my dad likes Benny Hill,
Mm-hmm.
and watches Benny Hill. And the teacher just, he says, oh, the teacher just goes, oh, that's not good. And I was so pissed off. I was like,
Yeah.
give me a break, man. Are you kidding me? I got a,
Yeah.
a person telling me that's no good. I'm twice your age.
Yeah.
I understand way more than you do about society. So don't prejudge me about some show. I mean, any of the women that were on that show, I've watched all the interviews, say he was a perfect gentleman. he was awesome, you know, but
Hmm.
you know, they knew their role. They knew what they need to do. They didn't complain, you know. So we live in a society of now it's before if you went to a comedy club and one person, you know, 15, 20 years ago went to the counter and said, that Arron Berg, I don't find him funny. Vito D'Amico's disgusting. I don't like those guys. The owner would just say, I'm sorry to hear that. All right, take care. You
Hmm.
know, bye. But
Free
now,
tickets. Yeah.
yeah, but now it's just like they come up to you afterwards, Aaron, and go, Aaron, we had a complaint. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
What? You're like, wait a minute, I got to go through the whole 45-minute set. What are you talking about? Oh, it was this joke you did. You know, it was very offensive. It's like, are you kidding me? I mean, being on stage, I remember being told that that stage is uh, uh, your time. It's your
Yeah.
time, right? It's what you.
There's something very sacred about it. I mean,
Yes.
the whole notion of going into those clubs, and we started at Yuck Yucks. There was this magic to it where it was like, oh, I could be the next Jim Carrey, or oh, I could be the next Mike McDonald, or and there was this need to work at the craft, and that seems to be gone when they try and put rules on it. But yeah, it's a sacred space, and I forget about it now. I used to years ago. I remember like the first time I walked into the stand when it opened, I was like, boy, this is beautiful. I can't wait to get on this stage. And now it's like, because I've done it so much, it's just wherever you go, it's just a microphone and a room of people.
Yeah.
So there's that feeling to it, whether it's a theater or like a big comedy club, it's just a microphone and a group of people. Um, no matter what, it's always just a room full of people. So it's that mystique is gone, but there's still what you're saying rings true, that it's this, it's a very powerful art form. And when you watch the guys that are the best at it, and not a lot of people are good at it. Literally, probably in the world, there's maybe 100 people that are really good at it in the world. In terms of like American comics, maybe like 20, 30 really good. Like, but it depends on what you think really good is. I had this talk with Gino where Louis was stopping by the stand in the summer. They were open and doing like these secret shows outside.
Yeah.
40 or 50 people, sometimes 100 would gather outside and just watch. And so I knew Louis was coming by, and then Chappelle was going to be there on the weekend doing a secret show indoors because it was like the SNL after party. And I told Gino, I go, I'm going to be working with the two best comics in the world this weekend. And he goes, well, Dave Attell and who? And I go, no, Chappelle and Louis. And he goes, Chappelle and Louis are not better than Dave Attell. And I said, well, Chappelle says stuff and he's silly, and Louis got these, and he goes, but Attell is funnier. And I thought about it, and I'd been so fortunate. I was like, all summer I would go on stage with Dave Attell for like 45 minutes, and we just shoot the shit back and forth. And that was like a dream come true. Like when I first moved here, I got to do that with Jeff Ross and Ari and Dave, and you're just like, oh, I'm on stage with Attell. And I watched Dave that weekend, and I didn't go on stage. I just wanted to watch him, and I could not stop laughing. And I was like, oh yeah, he's funnier than Louis and Chappelle because he's just so quick. And he's just like, but to think about how people the notion of not wanting voices out there seems weird to me. Like, at what point do you say what these people are saying is dangerous? That's what they're saying. They go, what comics say is dangerous, and it makes people act, either in a racist way or a homophobic way. But then it's like, why is the problem not that people aren't thinking for themselves? That you're blaming an entertainer instead of the actual people that are finding these hidden Easter eggs or dog whistles
But there's no
in
Easter eggs
stand-up.
or dog
No,
whistles. I mean,
I
it's
know.
just they're creating a problem just to create a problem. Like I honestly think people just sit there. I mean, most people that go to work and say, you know what, they put they're 40, 50 hours a week. They go see a comedy show. they laugh their brains out because it's just a release. It's just, there's nothing. I mean, it's not like you're up there saying the N word. It's nothing like that. You know,
Last night I did.
well, you're half black. So, I mean,
But my opener, the guy that went on before me, was black, and he said the bunch, so I just quoted him. And then I
right. But
also
there's
said,
a way of doing it,
yeah,
Aaron. It wasn't like you just said it just to say it, just to,
that's correct.
right? There's
I did say it
a
just to say.
point to it, right? So, and people laughed. And if people go to a show and just complain about, I mean, people would complain about when Dave Chappelle, I loved his special. And then the next day, it was like he did this joke about Michael Jackson and he shouldn't
Yeah.
have done that. And I'm sitting there going, do you not know? Like, I mean, when I do a joke, half the stories I do, of course I embellish them. Do you actually think, I mean, I had one guy and I taped the show and it was the worst because I had the owner of the club call me at the hotel and just go, "Do you want to be here?" And I'm like, "What?"
Why?
What happened was he had a mentally challenged guy came in. He was this fat guy.
I like the way you made that politically correct, but it was still antiquated when he did it. Mentally, one of the down children.
Yeah,
All
well,
right, go ahead.
he was something was clearly not right with this guy, right?
Right.
He came in late, and I always use the same line where I go, "Hey, look at this guy. He can't wait. He's just sitting here. He looks like he can't wait to go home and take a shit." And everybody laughed. And the thing was, is I taped the show. I
Mm-hmm.
put my camera in the back and I taped it, and it was a great night. Everyone laughed, and then this guy, every time I would look over to that area just to be nice, just look over there, he would just say "fuck off." I just thought
Yeah.
it was so weird. I would just go, "All right, whatever," and I didn't go back and forth with him or anything. I just thought, "All right, this guy's just kind of weird." After the show, this guy who was like 6'3", 300 pounds and nothing but fat, comes up to me and wants to fight me. He's like,
Yeah.
"Well, when I come to a comedy show, I don't like to be picked on." And I
Yeah.
and I was like, "Picked on? What are you talking about? You're just sitting there." And I just said, "Hey, look, this guy can't wait to go home and take a shit."
Yeah.
That's all I said, right? So, and now, like, what happened was at the comedy club, he on the table. This is a brilliant move. On the table,
Comment cards.
yeah, they put comment cards, right?
Which comedy club? Where was it? What
It
town?
was the absolute comedy where they sit there with a stopwatch.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, "Hey, you got exactly 35 minutes, and if you go over by 30 seconds, there'll be some guy waiting for you going, 'Hey man, you went over 30 seconds.'"
Yeah.
And it's just like I'm just like I'm telling a story. I'm trying to. I don't do these one-liners or whatever. I tell
Yeah.
a story. So, anyways, this guy, he anyways, he calls me. Jason calls me freaking out, saying, "Why do you don't want to be there?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And I started to get pissed off. And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Dude, I could just go home. Just I'll meet you at the club, pay me. I've been there since Wednesday, so I was just
Yeah.
like, just pay me. I'll go home. I don't need to be here." And he's like, "Well, why do you got to be like this? Why do you got to, why do you got to be?" And I'm like, "Hey man, you called me and pissed me off,
Mm-hmm.
instead of taking my side." And this, me and Jason, we used to co-feature together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like me calling you up and going, "Aaron, what's the problem, pal?" And you're like, "Vito, are you insane? Who are you talking to?"
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
like what you weren't even at the club. So
Yeah.
what are you talking about? And so, anyways, I put that up online, and I still have the tape. And I killed because I passed it over to Mark, and I go, "Hey, Mark, talk to this guy." And Mark, he was just like, "Yeah, Vito did. He was awesome. What are you talking about? I don't get what happened." Then they pass the phone back to me, and I'm like, "This is drama over some fat dumb moron." I mean, he's pissing off my day.
Yeah.
So I come back to the phone, and Jason's like, uh, he said something like, "I don't know why I have to be so defensive." And I'm like, defensive? You just called me and asked me why I don't want to be here. You've never had so many complaints. I
Yeah.
want to go to the club, and you show me all these complaints,
Hmm.
and I might as well go home, because tonight it's just going to be the same thing, man. So to me, it's just like, why would you listen to somebody that clearly uh, has mental health issues?
Yeah.
I mean, we all do. Like, why would you put that on me instead of just sitting there? You know what he says to me? He goes, "Oh, you had an off night," and I'm like, yeah, I didn't have an off night. I taped
Hmm.
the show. What are you talking about? I didn't have an off night. So then, anyway, that got me banned from Absolute, which I didn't really care, because it was just like, it was just a hassle, man. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm 9 hours away. I got to go. I understand he's got 3 clubs or whatever, but I'm like, Aaron, if I got to be there and there's a guy with a stopwatch. I mean,
Yeah.
he says this to me. Jason goes, "You uh you made our doorman upset,"
Oh, what the
and
fuck?
I'm like,
Guy's
what?
a problem.
I'm like, what are you talking about? Your doorman? I made him upset. He said, yeah, you told him to fuck off. And I was just like, no, I'm pretty nice to everybody, like, that works at the club. Or I go, what happened was is then I thought about it. What happened was is he came up to me, because I guess the little guy was scared. And he came up to me. He said, you went over like a minute and a half. And I said, oh, fuck off. And I walked away. You know what I mean? And that
Yeah.
it turned into, I'm difficult. Aaron, I'm one of the nicest guys. I always watch people's backs. But it just seems like, I had comics. I ended up beating up the guy, House of Comedy guy. I ended up just beating the shit out of him. And
Nice.
Jason was there when that happened.
What
Uh,
House of Comedy guy?
but I had like Fleming call me up, all these guys call me up at the hotel, just going, that was awesome, that was great, you beat the shit out of them, that was great. And I was just like, I was like, no, that wasn't great, man. It was awful. I don't want to be here. you know
Right.
I just slapped the shit out of a club owner.
Who
Like,
was that?
he ended up going to jail for raping a girl. uh
What?
yeah,
What House of Comedy?
the House of Comedy, the one in Niagara Falls.
Oh, I don't know that.
Yeah.
I never worked that place.
No, you were already gone. It was
Yeah.
his name was Tony. He was, never trust a redheaded Italian.
Okay.
Okay,
So
so
what happened? This story sounds awesome.
what happened? Now, this interview should be about you, but real quick, the itinerary, it was for a Valentine's Day. So me and Jason had to go up and play a Valentine's show. But
Jason who?
Jason Lawrence said,
Okay.
before he opened Absolute Comedy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what happened is Jason, when I got there, like, I told Tony, that the manager, I said, okay, I'm coming up for the Valentine's. He's charging $65 a seat, right?
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be for 2 shows, for Friday and Saturday.
Right.
But I'm not driving up to Niagara Falls. Niagara Falls is like 2 hours away, and he
Yeah.
knows that. So I go, hey, for me to come out there, uh, I get a room, right? And he goes, yeah, you get a room. Well, it turns out that the Friday when I was done the show, I'm looking for my room it was at the Americano Hotel. I was like, where's my room key? Like, where's this? And he was already gone. And
Yeah.
he never got me a room.
Mm-hmm.
So I called him up and I go, where's my room? And he goes, oh, I didn't get you a room. It's packed. And he goes, you got to rent yourself a room. And I go, okay, you're going to pay for that. And he goes, no, I'm not going to pay for that. And I go, okay, well, I'm going to go home.
Yeah.
I'm not going to drive 2 hours there, 2 hours back. And the money wasn't that great. So I'm like,
Right.
I'd rather be home screwing my wife on Valentine's than being here. Okay.
Yeah.
So what happened is he's like, all right, I'll get your room. I'll get your room. They ended up getting me like the broom closet. So I'm already pissed off that I got to
Mm-hmm.
sleep in this shithole of a room. So the next day I say, meet me the plan was, I was like, just pay me for tonight. And as soon as he pays me, I was just going to leave because I was so pissed off there. I was like, you let me sleep in a broom closet. Are you kidding me? Like I was so angry.
Was it really a broom closet?
It was like where the janitor leaves his shit.
Come on.
I'm dead serious. Dude, like the smell of, it was just that smell of Ajax or whatever, that cleaning stuff.
Yeah.
It was that extra room where they shove all shit in there.
And there's a cot. Would you get a cot or something?
Yeah, I got a cot. I got a cot and a pillow that was like as thick as my pen. You know? So I'm pissed off, right? And I said, meet me first thing in the morning, right? So he comes in the morning and he goes, I go, hey, just pay me and I'm out of here. And he goes, oh, is this a setup? And he pushes me, which was a big mistake. So I ended up just beating the living shit out of him there in front of everybody. Like there were like people walking by. There was a kid going, Daddy, is that the comic? Yes.
No.
Yeah, I'm dead serious. I'm not making it up. Daddy, is that the comic? Because they had our posters up there. And you walk by and the kid's like watching me beat the shit. He tries to grab a payphone off the wall.
Yeah.
Like he thinks he's the Hulk, which you were in. People don't know, but Aaron was in the Hulk.
Yeah, I said one line.
But still, man, you were in the Hulk.
Yeah.
So he tries to grab a payphone off the wall to hit me. And I ended up just kicking him in the ass and beating the shit out of him. So I go to he goes, okay, let's stop. And he goes, here, I got your room. Please, you got to do these shows. And I'm like, what shows? He didn't tell me that he booked another room. So it was like once I was done my set, I had to run to another room to do it. So he never told me that. And I go, how much money is that? Oh yeah, you still get paid, the amount that, more, it's double. You get paid for that show too. So I go, great, no problem. So I ended up calling Tony, another comic, and I said, listen, I don't even want to be here, man. I ended up getting into a fight with the owner. He's a piece of shit. I want to get out of here. So do me a favor, don't tell anybody, okay?
Yeah.
So 5 minutes later, everybody calls me. Everybody, like, I mean, who was the first guy that called me? Jim Carrey's best friend there.
Wayne Fleming.
Wayne Fleming, yeah, he passed away. And he goes, hey, buddy. He goes, so what happened? And I had to tell him what happened. And I was like, and then the phone kept ringing. It was more comics going, that's awesome. But what bugged me was none of those, all those comics ended up working that club. They were like, hey, that's awesome. You kicked the shit out. That guy's an asshole. He's terrible. But then I'm not working the club. He took me off of, his website as one of the comics. He took me off. As soon as I
kicked the shit out of him. What do you think's going to happen?
Yeah, I know.
You're not getting a raise.
Well, it was like, I don't know. I don't know. It was just, I was just like, I would have thought if they treated you like that, if a club treated you like that, I would have been like, Aaron, I'm not going to play that club. The guy's a mag.
Yeah, I mean, comics are crabs in a bucket. Comics are just trying to get by. There's very minimal loyalty. The point is you want to try and get to, the point where you're working for good clubs and the clubs have the comics backs, like The Stand is the classic example of that, where it's like everyone that people go after, Shane Gillis, Ari Shaffir, Big J, though The Stand is always like, no, these guys are funny. They work. That's it, so it's easier to get along with people when you got similar things in mind. But if that guy's only vision was he wants to fucking scam some money and make some money, that's how these problems come up. He
ended up, how he went to jail for 3 years for raping somebody. And then he, do you know what he was doing? He was doing.
Well, it sounds like sex without consent.
No, he was doing this. He was inviting women to the club, telling them to be. He's an agent in LA, and he needs to videotape them. But you got to be naked, and you gotta. He'd have dildos out, and he'd have girls come out. and he would try and screw these girls. That's how much of a maggot he was.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm like, why would you
Remember
do
that happened with another Toronto comic a few years ago.
what?
Remember Rob Clifford?
What club did he
Rob
meant?
Clifford used to do Yuck Yucks. He wasn't a manager, he was a comic, and he would destroy on Nubian nights. He was a white guy, spent some time in jail, but on Nubian nights would annihilate, like standing ovations. And then he was in the paper a few years ago. He was tricking girls, saying he was an agent
Right.
or a manager, and was taking girls to parks near Yorkdale and
Oh God.
basically trying to finger blast them or something.
There was, I don't know if you know the guy. I was talking to Wes Saharic the other night, and he was telling me, oh God, what was the guy's name? Anyways, he had, remember there was Yuck Yucks, and there was another club. There was uh
The Laugh Resort.
that's it. That guy, he was like a pedophile or something.
Who is this? Wes Saharic?
He's a prop comic.
I
No,
don't know.
Wes Eric's a prop comic. He was telling me
Oh.
about what happened. So, anyways, because I saw it on the news, and it's really weird. There was a guy that he was in a movie called Polar. He's got like a weird, he's just a weird looking guy, but he gets a lot of work, like bit parts. And I remember when I played the club, we were in the bathroom together. Not we weren't doing anything. He was just going.
Boyd Banks?
I think so.
I don't think he was a pedophile. Boyd got in trouble. He licked someone's ear on the news.
No, this guy. It was on the news, Aaron. Anyways, who cares? Anyways, it's a mess in Canada. So when did you say I'm going to move to the States?
That was always my intention, was to get good enough to get out, but it happened 8 years ago, almost 9 years ago, 8.5 years ago, I finally left. But I was taking little trips down for a while to see, if I'd cut my teeth enough and if I could, kill in New York. So I did that for a couple of years, and then I basically made the move. I just packed up my Jeep Liberty and drove down to Astoria and moved in with Christine Von Hagen, Julianne Dion, Jen Grant, and moved into this little 8x10 room. I left my fiance and just started grinding it. And it was tough. It was a really tough transition because in Canada, I was able to be a little bit comfortable. I owned property and I was, a headliner there. But basically then you give that up and start over and come down here and do $20 spots. So it was a roll of the dice, but I knew I had to do it. I wasn't happy in Canada, and it just seemed like what I wanted to do stylistically wouldn't blow up there. And I had to do it. I just felt like New York was the place for me.
Yeah, that's a whatever happened to Christine Von Hagen? Is she still around?
I think she moved to Vegas. She went back to Canada for a bit, and then she went to Vegas. Jen and Julianne went home. Nathan McIntosh moved in with us after a while, and Nathan's doing really well. Nathan kind of blew up down here too. Really funny.
Right. So but at least you took the like when I know you don't know Wes, but Wes ended up moving to the UK and did really well in the UK. And it was a big step for him. And it was one of those things where I'm like, man, I wish I, did that.
Yeah, Canada, you knew that there was a ceiling there. Like I always knew that. And it was like, unless you're going to figure out a way to do TV and film and still do stand up, and there's very few people that can really make it unless they're in like Quebec, and then other people like do corporates and stuff like that. But to be a stand up purist, you had to go to New York. It's where all the great stand up is.
Yeah. And that's really amazing that you're playing. I mean, you've been on you've been in a lot of movies. You've been on. I didn't know that you were on Murdoch Mysteries. I try not to watch. I don't watch Canadian TV, man.
It's so bad, Canadian TV. I don't know how you can watch it.
I don't. I just don't. I end up watching YouTube videos of black people reacting to Led Zeppelin. you
Oh,
know.
wow.
Yeah, it's
That
fun.
sounds exciting.
It's really fun. Um, yeah. So how like going down there I know it was it must have been pretty terrifying though,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean,
Sure.
mentally, you're sitting there going, "Hey, man, I'm down in a different country. I'm making 20 bucks. I don't know if this is going to work." But you must have thought to yourself, "Hey, man, I'm a good comic. I know once I get up on stage and I do what I do, I'll be all right."
It's
You know?
exactly what I thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it was just a matter of the goals were, get past at as many clubs as possible so that you could work as much as possible. And then it was, then I figured out, look, if I was working weekends and I was bouncing around the clubs, which is what you could do on a Saturday or Friday night, I would do 7 or 8 spots. And you're getting paid 75, $100 a spot. It Then you're like, okay, I don't need to go on the road because I can hustle around and do these spots. So that was the goal, and that took years. And it was like once I got in at one really good club, then word started to spread, and then you're working all these other clubs. And that was the goal. And then it was like, okay, I got to figure out a way to get like a TV credit because you're not gonna, the TV credit helps you get somewhere else. You need a stand-up credit. And then, I kept trying to get on Ari Shafir's This Is Not Happening. And they were very honest. And they're like, look, you're great, but they're only taking white guys if they're famous now. They need more black women. They need lesbian, gay people. And they
Yeah.
were very upfront about that. So that kind of opened my eyes to like, oh, this is the way the industry is moving. And there was this thing where Jessica Kirson said it, and she's so funny. And about a year and a half ago, she said this, and she goes, "The toughest type of comic to be right now is a straight white man."
Yeah.
And she nailed it. And she got a lot of flack for it because she's a lesbian woman. But she nailed it. It's like you just have to be that much better. You have to be so goddamn good to get anything. It's a crazy, crazy thing.
It's like, don't you feel like if like I don't know, maybe how a black person felt in the 60s?
That's happening in America now. When you watch what happened at the Capitol the other day, and
Yeah, that was
people are making the comparisons where they're going, if this was BLM, they would have all been shot. And you're like, no, BLM lit a police station on fire,
for a month.
uh, and that none of them were arrested. So it, it's uh, it's crazy.
For a month, Aaron. For a month.
Yeah, for a month. So it's everybody wants to make this double standard, but it's really, and it sounds horrible to say this, white people are going to be an oppressed minority in this country for a while.
Yeah.
And it's going to be weird when they're going to go, well, the privilege, and when you look at how privilege actually works, it's not white privilege anymore.
No.
And it's a really, so people want to label it alt right, or they want to label. It's like if you're just looking at statistics and facts, that's the way it goes. I don't go full into like that QAnon type bullshit, but I can look at facts and go, no, here's what's really happening. When the Oscars make a shift and they go, it's not about the best movie anymore, it's about who has the best representation in making that movie. You've changed the playing field.
Yeah, I mean, I don't watch the Oscars or anything. I haven't watched it in years. It used to be something where, you would I remember watching with the whole family. And then, as you get older, you would have I went to an Oscar party and I just thought, oh, this is cool. You root for the person that you like. And now it was like they came up with this thing where I just think this is just a horrible path to go, where they go
Yeah.
30% need to be black. They won't look at you. I mean, it's like they're handing out medals. Do you remember being in school and you didn't get a ribbon or anything unless you placed in the first three?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like something that just old guys say all the time now, where it's like, all these participation trophies. But yeah, there's something to it. But look, I understand the notion behind it, where people want the world to be a better place.
Oh, we
I
all do.
get that, but I moved to America because it's a capitalist society. You work hard, you get what you work for. and those are the beliefs that I hold. I'm an immigrant. A lot of immigrants come to this country and they have a very glamorized vision of what America is. This 1980s boom and bust, you know, Reagan, jobs, money. And that's what that's what most immigrants move here for. So immigrants tend to have a very conservative viewpoint on how they view America. But people that are born here either take it for granted or question it more. And it's a weird time.
Yeah, it's a disturbing time. It just seems like I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. I don't care as long as you're a good person. That's all I care
Yeah,
about. Okay, and
but
that's how it should
it's
be.
it's
But
so strange when it's like everything has to fall under a blanket and everything is so divisive now. And it's like, if any person is shot and they're a person of color, it's wrong. Even if they pull a gun out and shoot at the cops, they're like, well, why'd you have to kill this guy? Shit like that, where there's just no logic and reason that goes into these flawed arguments. And those are the narratives that get spun out of control.
yeah, I just think the more I watch it, the more I think the media is the enemy. I mean,
I mean, Trump started that. Trump is the president that this country deserved. But he started that. He started the questioning of the media. So now nobody knows what's real and what's fake anymore.
yeah, that's that.
And it's all algorithms. And it's like yesterday, I got a whole bunch of stuff showed up on my social media where it's like, we believe Antifa were present at this Capitol storming. And then, of course, my wife's side is, it's the exact opposite of that. So her feed is so different than my feed.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a scary time, and I worry about, you know, I got kids. I don't want them to go in this, like you know, I don't want them to end up in this shithole,
Mm-hmm.
where people go, this is going to be, I mean, I just, this sounds, I'm not trying to, I don't know how Joe Biden won.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
I
don't
don't
like
know either. I
to
was
be,
out in the country in in real America, and there was a lot of Trump signs, and there was a lot of people going to Trump's rallies. I don't know, but I mean, I heard Sam say this on Jim and Sam yesterday. He goes, yeah, "This happens every election. When Hillary lost, they're like, this is impossible.
yeah.
How did she lose?" And it's like it always happens. It's possible. The country is very divided, and it's pretty close to 50-50, and it could have gone that way. I
And
get it. It could have gone that way.
yeah, but I mean, just the way things turned out, and I mean the hatred, the absolute hate, the visceral hatred. I've never seen it like this, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, there's no way you're going to. I mean, if you sit there and you say to me, I'm a Republican and I'm a Democrat, we should just sit there and go, common sense, Aaron. Just hey, okay, I don't agree.
Yeah, people should talk, but it's also human interaction is gone because of this virus.
Yeah,
So people don't do that anymore, and it's just online vitriol. And people still tend to forget that this came out of China and that it was China's doing, and everybody forgets that. You don't see China mentioned in this at all until
no,
you see people in Wuhan celebrating New Year's Eve, but Times Square is locked down. So it's a weird time. And then if you say that, Andrew Schultz said it in his special where he made fun of China, and people are like, he's a racist for.
yeah.
No, the virus came from China. There's no other way to look at it.
Do you know what I find amazing? Other people that come, like you say, you're an immigrant, to the States. You did not have any privilege going there. Okay. You had to work for what? I mean, working sets for $10, staying in a room with 10 other people. You did not, I mean, you have to look at it and say, all right, if I don't, having your car, do I have enough? I mean, I got to the point where I'm like, do I have enough gas money?
Mm-hmm.
Is it worth it? And there was no privilege. I didn't sit there and go, I got this privilege. It didn't, there's none of that, man. So this needs to stop. This whole notion of, it's kind of, the way I see it is, they want people to fight.
Hmm.
Politicians just want people to fight. So that way they could keep their phony baloney jobs. That's it. If you just keep people fighting, keep them hating each other, instead of bringing people together, working as one, you're just causing, you want a rift. You want people to be angry every day. If I look at a Twitter feed, it messes up my day, because I'm like, this is disturbing. This is just absolutely disturbing. Twitter is just a dumpster fire of hate,
Hmm.
right? I mean, if you look at the woman that was shot yesterday at the Capitol,
2 days ago.
2 days ago, uh, the comments are just disgusting. The person had a life. They were, a child. They had a child, I believe, a small child. I mean, it's just the viciousness, and you know, that's the whole thing of going to to me, going to a comedy club was a release,
Yeah.
right? That's the
Yeah.
whole, right. It's a
And
release
it still
of,
is. I
of
mean,
reality.
some people get it, some people don't.
Well, if we keep going down this road of, this Hannah Gatsby, and I'm sure people are going to, oh, you're just jealous or whatever. Trust me, I'm not jealous of that. I'm not. I just don't get how, she's winning awards, I just don't get it. And it's like what you're saying is so true, where they're saying, hey, we're not looking at white dudes anymore. Your time has passed.
Yeah.
If you're a black guy in a wheelchair, you're in. You got a special.
I don't know any black guys in wheelchairs, but
But
when you look at what Andrew Schultz did, and it's inspirational, where it's like, look, we don't need the industry. And people have been saying this for years. So the industry is irrelevant. You have to make your own way, and you have to build your own fan base, and you have to constantly be prolific and work at your craft. And if you do that, you can win.
Yeah. And that's what you've been doing.
Yeah.
Do you find it harder now? I mean, I was looking at your IMDb, and you've been in a lot of movies. How, like, are you worried that you're not going to get any more movie parts?
Yeah, I don't go for that anymore.
Okay.
I don't go out for that stuff anymore. I just stopped doing it because I was like, I'm just focused on comedy. So, I do In Hot Water, I do Gum Fridays, I do stand up, and then whatever else is going to come is going to be stuff that I make on my own. So whether it's going to be a sketch show or a documentary or a comedy movie, I'm going to do that on my own. You don't need the industry anymore.
Right. And how did you end up getting on Compound Media?
I was at the stand. I saw Gino Bisconti, and I go, I would never do a podcast, but if I did, I would do it with you. And he goes, let's do one. I go, okay, let's do it in my hot tub, call it In Hot Water. And while we said that, Jeffrey Gurian, the writer for the Interrobang, was there. And he goes, you're going to start a podcast? I go, yeah, it's called In Hot Water. He wrote about it before we even started it. Gino and I did a couple on his laptop. I think it was maybe getting like 600 listens a week or something. And then Anthony Cumia went to rehab. We'd both been guests on Anthony's show. And Legion of Skanks was there at the time, too. And then Cumia went to rehab. We sat in as guest hosts for him. Both did great. And then Keith the Cop was there, and he's like, hey, you guys have a show. Do you want to bring it over here? We need a Wednesday. Legion of Skanks is leaving. We need someone to fill in. So we did. And we started there once a week in the afternoons. And then Artie Lang came over, and it was Artie and Anthony. And they were expanding at the time. So I was like, look, we should do a morning show. So we started doing a morning show. We did that for a couple of years. And then they were reshaping, and we'd gotten a lot more listeners and viewers. And they wanted us as Anthony's lead-in. So that's what we are now, is the 2:00 in the afternoon spot for an hour and a half. And then Cumia goes on. So it's great. And it's, it's such a great place to work because it's the Freedom of Speech Network. and you can say whatever you want. There's no rules as long as it's funny.
Yeah, Dave Landau is very funny,
I
and
agree.
same with Anthony was famous for. I mean, when he worked with just real quick, when he worked with Opie, I always found Anthony to be just incredibly funny. Just just that. And now it's just he's a racist. He's a horrible human being, and
People say awful things about him, and
yeah, but
he's
he's
hilarious,
hilarious.
and
You could tell he's actually a nice guy.
he's a
So
great guy.
yeah, so I don't get that whole racism thing. I don't freedom of speech is freedom of speech. Okay, who was it that said that? Hey man, I may not agree with you, but I will defend everything you say. What is that famous saying? With my sword, I'll defend everything you
Yeah,
say. He said it like 100 years ago or
you
something.
sound like Joe Biden right now.
Well, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I beat George Bush. Now I think I'm the president.
Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, freedom of speech is an important thing.
And doing those movie roles, how did it come about? Have you ever been on set and you just thought, man, I'm on I'm on a big movie set here, man. Like, is that kind of
Yeah,
cool?
for sure. Yeah, it was great. I mean, most of the, when you're younger, you're like, oh, this is going to be a big break. This is going to be a breakthrough for me. But then, after a while, you're like, okay, it's work, and I'm going to do the best I can on this job, and that's what happens. It loses some of the allure, and then you just keep doing what you're doing.
Right. And one last thing I wanted to say with comedy, where people come in and say, comedy wise, what you're doing is bad, or this is not funny, or whatever. Don't you think comedy will always? I mean, if your set is terrible, you'll know. And if you do like 10 of these sets, the club will know. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So either you don't get booked anymore. It's not like they're booking crappy comics and saying, hey, come on out here because we want people to be angry or annoyed. Comedy will always will always find a way of, remember the 80s where okay, if they made a homosexual joke, I mean, people would laugh or whatever, but you knew by the 90s and 2000 it just wasn't going to happen anymore.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? Like like comedy will always sit there and grow and go, yeah, that
Yeah,
was
it has to
funny back
evolve.
then. But like if you make a funny gay joke that even gay people find funny, there's nothing offensive about that. As long as it's if you've evolved it from being just a simple gay joke.
I agree.
Right. So I just wish people would just leave that art alone. And that's what stand up is. It is an art. It's incredibly hard to do. Okay. You make it look easy. But that's just years of practice and you honing your skill. I mean, people don't know that.
Thank you.
People just think that you just go up there and talk, and it's like, well, Aaron's been doing this for a while. He's worked at it. He's passionate about it. And he makes people laugh hysterically. Okay. And that's something that, to me, watching a good stand-up like you is a gift. You don't need to buy me a Christmas present, man. I just need to see your stand-up.
Thank you very much.
Because it's very funny. I don't, you have people saying, hey, you're funny. I'm sure you get that all the time. But I really mean that. I really mean that. Hey, man, you brighten a person's day.
Thanks, Vito.
Because when you're having a crappy day, you think back and you think about a bit somebody did, you laugh their brains out. And if you can make somebody laugh, especially with the way things are going now, you can make somebody laugh. That is incredibly important.
Agreed.
Okay. So anything you want to plug? I know you do, like anything you want to plug or.
In Hot Water, subscribe now, Compound Media. There's discount codes available. You can save 20% off. My Patreon is patreon.com/gumfridays. And my documentary's on Amazon, 25 sets.
Oh shit, I'm so sorry I didn't even talk about that.
I just did. There you go.
Okay, yeah. So go see that, folks. And
Yeah.
believe me, this is Arron Berg. He's one of the funniest men on the planet. Go check it out. Please do. Arron, you've been a blast. I appreciate it. Means a lot. I know you're gonna go work out now, but hey, man. Hopefully one day I get to see you before I go to the great,
Beyond.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll be back in Canada soon. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, man. If you're ever back and you want to go grab a bite, we'll go to Red Lobster or something.
Oh, sounds great. I love getting food poisoning. Okay.
All right. Love you, man.
I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, brother.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.